Keanu Reeves stood quietly in the first class line, his modest attire a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding him. A man nearby observed him with a blend of curiosity and disdain, his confident demeanor suggesting he belonged to this world of luxury. What followed left every passenger on that plane utterly speechless, profoundly impacting one man in particular. The airport buzzed with its usual symphony of rolling luggage, hurried footsteps and fragmented conversations. In the midst of this chaos, Keanu exuded an air of tranquility. His outfit, a simple plaid shirt, worn jeans and well-traveled boots, might have caused him to blend into any ordinary crowd, but his calm presence made him subtly stand out. He carried a rugged backpack, its frayed edges hinting at countless adventures. Right behind him in line stood Liam Harding, a man who embodied the opposite, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit with polished shoes and a cologne that announced itself before even spoke. Liam projected confidence. His every move seemed deliberate, as if choreographed to assert his importance. His gaze fell on Keanu, and a smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "First class, huh?" Liam said with a raised eyebrow, his voice dripping with irony. "You never know who'll show up here these days." Keanu turned to face him, his expression unperturbed. "Yeah, life's full of surprises," he replied simply. Liam expected more, perhaps a defensive rhetor or an explanation, but Keanu's calm response left him momentarily at a loss. Deciding not to let the interaction end so easily, Liam pressed on. "Nothing personal," Liam continued with a chuckle. "But you don't exactly fit the profile of a first-class passenger. It's rare to see someone so casual." The line began to move, and both men handed over their tickets. Liam strode confidently, his posture reflecting his sense of belonging. Keanu, in contrast, moved at his own steady pace, seemingly unaffected by the bustling environment. When they reached their seats, fate delivered a twist that neither anticipated. Liam glanced at his ticket, then at the seat beside him where Keanu was already settling in. His disbelief was palpable. "You've got to be kidding me," Liam muttered under his breath, shaking his head as he took his seat. "Of all the places," Keanu offered a polite smile. "Looks like we're neighbors for the flight." Liam crossed his arms, trying to mask his discomfort. It wasn't just the seating arrangement, it was the quiet composure of the man he just underestimated. Something about Keanu's presence unsettled him, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. As the plane taxied and the hum of engines filled the cabin, Liam leaned toward Keanu, intent on asserting his dominance in their unspoken rivalry. "So what do you do for a living?" Liam asked, his tone casual but with an edge of condescension. Keanu adjusted his backpack under the seat in front of him and replied simply, "I work in film." Liam's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, commercials, indie projects?" he asked, his smirk returning. Keanu's lips curved into a slight smile. "Something like that." Liam chuckled. "Well, I guess everyone's got to find their place, right? Some spaces just aren't meant for everyone." Keanu looked at him, his gaze steady. "I think we all end up exactly where we're supposed to be." Liam laughed, but it felt forced. The calm assurance in Keanu's words didn't sit well with him. He leaned back, already plotting his next move to regain the upper hand. Little did he know this flight would challenge his perceptions in ways he never imagined. With the plane now cruising at altitude, the cabin attendants began the in-flight service. As they moved through first class, offering drinks and snacks, Liam made sure to assert his presence. "A glass of champagne, please," he said, flashing a confident smile. "Something that matches the exclusivity of this seat." The flight attendant nodded professionally and poured his drink. When she turned to Keanu, he simply said, "Just water, please." Liam couldn't resist another jab. "Water," he said with a laugh. "You're really going to waste a first-class experience on plain water?" Keanu took the bottle with a polite "Thank you, sometimes simplicity is enough," he replied, taking a sip. Liam leaned back, his expression one of mock disbelief. "Well, I guess that works for people who are okay with settling for less. Not everyone's meant to enjoy the finer things in life." Keanu glanced at him, his calm demeanor unwavering. "The finer things mean different things to different people," he said simply. For a moment, Liam was taken aback. It wasn't the answer he'd expected. He narrowed his eyes as though trying to decipher some hidden meaning, deciding not to lose Momentum, he pressed on. Sure, but let's be honest, people who talk about simplicity usually do so because they've never had access to anything better. Keanu's eyes met his, steady and composed, or maybe he said because they've learned that the best things in life aren't things at all. Liam's smirk faltered, and a few nearby passengers subtly turned their attention to the exchange. The flight attendant, passing by with another tray, cast a discreet glance in their direction, clearly intrigued by the tension. The conversation might have ended there, but Liam wasn't one to let go so easily. He leaned in slightly, his tone low but pointed. Life is like first class, he said, gesturing with his champagne glass. You work hard, earn your spot, and enjoy it. But some people, they just don't belong. Keanu's expression didn't change, but there was a subtle intensity in his gaze. Maybe belonging isn't about where you sit, he said, but how you treat the people around you. The weight of his words seemed to hang in the air, and a few passengers exchanged approving glances. Liam, on the other hand, shifted uncomfortably. He chuckled, though it lacked the confidence of before. That's one way to look at it, he said, lifting his glass in a mock toast. But even as he spoke, he could feel the dynamic shifting. For the first time, he wasn't sure he was in control of the conversation. As the flight continued, the subtle tension between Liam and Keanu began to ripple through the cabin. The passengers, though trying to appear uninterested, were clearly tuned in. Every exchange between the two seemed to carry an undercurrent of something deeper, a clash of values, perspectives, and personalities. Liam, still eager to assert his dominance, decided to shift the conversation once again. He turned toward Keanu, his voice carrying a hint of mocked curiosity. You know, Liam began, I've always found it fascinating how some people manage to make their way into places like this. It's almost like they got lucky or something. Keanu turned his head slightly, his calm eyes meeting Liam's. Or maybe they worked hard in ways that aren't always visible, he said. Liam smirked. Sure, but let's be real, in a competitive world it's not just about hard work, it's about showing people what you've got, otherwise who's going to notice? Keanu's expression remained unchanged, but his words carried a quiet conviction. True success doesn't need to shout, it speaks for itself. Liam leaned back, the smirk faltering slightly. He glanced around, noting the subtle approval in the faces of other passengers. It was clear that Keanu's composed responses were resonating in a way. Liam's bravado was not. The flight attendant returned to collect empty glasses, and Liam seized the opportunity to refill his champagne. He glanced at Keanu, who had barely touched his water. You know what's funny, Liam said, swirling the champagne in his glass. People who talk about humility and simplicity always seem to be the ones who have nothing to show for themselves. Ever noticed that? Keanu leaned forward slightly, his gaze steady and unyielding. I've noticed that sometimes the people who talk the most about what they have are the ones who feel the emptiest inside. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Liam opened his mouth to respond, but faltered, momentarily lost for words. The passengers around them exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement with Keanu's observation. The flight was well underway, and a heavy silence seemed to settle over the first-class cabin. Liam sat in his seat, his confidence visibly shaken after his exchanges with Keanu, yet the persistent need to reassert himself drove him to speak again. You know, Liam started, his voice carrying a forced casualness. Life's not just about what you do, it's about proving it to others. That's how you get ahead, right? Keanu tilted his head slightly, considering the statement. I suppose that depends on what you're trying to prove, he said calmly, and to whom Liam leaned forward, eager to take the reins of the conversation. It's about respect. If people don't see what you've achieved, they'll never give you the credit you deserve. Keanu's gaze didn't waver. Respect earned by what you show isn't the same as respect earned by how you live, he said. His tone was steady, almost meditative, as if speaking from a place of deep understanding. In the words seemed to catch Liam off guard. He hesitated, fiddling with the edge of his champagne glass. Around them, the other passengers listened intently, their curiosity about the exchange growing with every word. Easy for you to say, Liam finally retorted. You probably haven't had to fight for recognition. People like you, they get everything handed to them. Keanu's lips curved into a faint smile. That's an interesting assumption, he replied, but recognition without substance is like a castle built on sand. It doesn't last. Liam opened his mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. The quiet confidence in Keanu's demeanor was disarming, leaving Liam to sit back in frustration. The flight attendant approached once more, offering refills to the passengers. She paused briefly at Liam's seat, her professional smile unwavering before moving to Keanu. This time several passengers subtly turned their heads to catch his response. "Just water, thank you," Keanu said politely. His voice calm and composed. The simplicity of his request seemed to highlight the contrast between the two men, Liam with his overt displays of confidence and Keanu whose quiet humility spoke volumes without effort. As the attendant moved on, Liam broke the silence. "You know, some people are born into simplicity because they don't have a choice, others they just settle for it." Keanu regarded him thoughtfully. "And some people choose simplicity because they've realized what truly matters," he said. The statement hung in the air, drawing a collective pause from those listening. Even Liam seemed to feel the weight of the words, though his pride wouldn't let him show it. He crossed his arms, his expression conflicted as he stared out the window, clearly grappling with more than just the conversation. Keanu, meanwhile, leaned back in his seat, his focus shifting to the passing clouds outside. The tension in the cabin began to ease, but the unspoken lessons lingered, leaving an impression on everyone who had witnessed the exchange as the plane began its descent. The atmosphere in the first-class cabin remained subdued. Liam sat quietly, the earlier bravado drained from his posture. Across from him, Keanu continued to exude an unshakable calm, his attention seemingly fixed on the clouds outside. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing the upcoming landing. Passengers adjusted their seats and gathered their belongings, but the tension from the earlier exchanges lingered. Liam finally broke the silence. "Listen," he began, his voice lower, almost hesitant. "I might have been out of line back there. I didn't mean to come off like that." Keanu turned to him, his expression gentle but firm. "I appreciate the apology," he said, "but it's not me you need to make peace with." Liam frowned, unsure of how to respond. "What do you mean?" Keanu leaned forward slightly, meeting Liam's gaze. "Sometimes the hardest person to face is yourself. Maybe this flight wasn't about me, but about what you've been carrying." The words struck a chord. Liam's fingers tightened around the armrests, his mind racing through the implications. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of something unfamiliar vulnerability. The plane touched down smoothly, and the passengers began disembarking. As they waited for their turn to leave, a flight attendant approached Keanu, her tone respectful but warm. "Mr. Reeves, the captain asked me to extend his regards." "Hek, a big fan," she said with a smile. Keanu nodded graciously. "Thank you, please send him my regards as well." The name hung in the air like a revelation. A murmur rippled through the cabin as passengers suddenly connected the dots. Liam froze, his expression a mixture of disbelief and realization. "Wait," he stammered. "You're Keanu Reeves?" Keanu turned to him, his calm demeanor unchanged. "I am." Liam's face turned red as he scrambled to find the right words. "I didn't know. I mean, I wouldn't have." Keanu held up a hand, stopping him gently. "It's okay. The way we treat people shouldn't depend on who they are, but on who we are." Liam fell silent, the weight of Keanu's words settling heavily on him. As the passengers filed out, he lingered behind, mind watching Keanu interact with others. The actor's humility and kindness were unmistakable, leaving an impression that words alone couldn't convey. By the time Liam stepped off the plane, something inside him had shifted. The encounter had peeled back layers of arrogance and left him questioning his own values. For the first time, he wondered if success wasn't about status or recognition, but about character. As Keanu disappeared into the terminal crowd, Liam stood still, the noise of the airport fading into the background. He realized that this flight had been more than just a journey. It had been a lesson, one that would stay with him long after the plane had landed.